Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Palm Tree Sports. It is brought to you by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and I am your host, Corey Pujols. And guys, this is going to be a fun show. It's not going to have as much content as we would normally have right now with a whole bunch of sports coming to the end of the year, also reaching the end of their seasons. Of course, baseball has already wrapped up, and football is soon to be next. College football is wrapping up within the next few weeks with some big games being played today. Of course, there are huge implications for this week in the NFL for a couple of teams, Bucks included. So we're going to get into all that into this show as well. And I just want to say first and foremost, guys, that it is New Year's Eve. So, tomorrow's the start of a new time for everybody, a new year, but more specifically a new time to be alive for everybody. And that means new opportunities. So I just, as far as anybody else may be concerned, I lift prayers up for everybody that we may be able to man, not speaking for myself, but for everybody when I say this, but be able to abolish our fears and go after our opportunities, right, and make the most of them, especially with this new year coming around the corner. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into some of these sports that we're going to get into. First things first, we're going to start with the Bucks. Obviously, they have some big implications tomorrow against the Panthers. So with that being said, that game is going to be Sunday. Tomorrow afternoon, I should say, at 1 p.m. So it's going to be an early game. So we're pretty much going to know our future early on, which is, for me, I think that's probably a good thing because I think I'd rather get it done and out the way. And basically, for those who don't know, if the Bucks win tomorrow, they win the division. If they don't win tomorrow, they don't win the division. So that's simple, okay? Panthers are the only team in our division to beat us this year, and that came earlier in the year. So this is the chance for redemption and a chance to get into the playoffs. I believe get a bye week as well with the first game would be against the Cowboys right now as it stands. So, with all those things taken into consideration, if the Bucks win tomorrow, they are in and they will have won the division. So that would be a beautiful thing. That would be a great thing to experience for back-to-back years, which I don't know if Tampa Bay's done it back-to-back years. So, that's definitely a huge deal for Tampa Bay at least. But then obviously Tampa Bay isn't the only team that's going to have some implications. There's also going to be the Jags, and we will definitely get into that part in a second. But more specifically for Tampa Bay, I want to make mention of what's the downside for the game that's going to be played against the Panthers, and that's that most likely that Nassib and Davis, so Carl Nassib and Carlton Davis will be probably not suiting up. They're doubtful right now as it's listed, but there's most likely no room for wiggle for them for what they're dealing with. There are a couple other questionables. Jamel Dean, most notably, is questionable, but he may actually go, so that would be huge for us if he does go. That defense is just putting itself back together and getting better and better as well because, that's basically what has been carrying Tampa Bay this year. And this is going to be weird for anybody who hasn't done this yet, go look at the top 5 quarterbacks right now in the league as far as passing is concerned. Tom Brady is the only quarterback from the NFC on that list. It's weird. As bad as Tampa Bay's offense has been performing, Tom has somehow managed to stay in the top 5 at 45. So, guys, that's a noteworthy, that's stress. Like, at this age in his career, it's still amazing what he's doing. But we're going to need him to play his best game of the season because we may need that best game of the season later on in the playoffs, but more specifically to win the game tomorrow. He's going to have to play well. You're going to have to control the line of scrimmage. You're going to have to control time of possession. That's going to be the 2 big parts of the game tomorrow. If we can do both of those things, we'll win the game. We're going to idealistically want to run the ball very well against Carolinas to set up the play action and create easy passes and easy routes for our receivers, right? We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. It's punches and bunches, right? So that's basically what we're going to need to beat the Panthers. Panthers, I don't think they had anybody that was out at the moment, but there were a couple of questionables. I think they had 4 or 5 questionables. So we'll see how that splits out for them, for us. in this divisional matchup here, to determine who's gonna take the crown this year. So that's gonna be big. As far as that's concerned, though, that's all for Tampa Bay. Win and they're in. It's that simple. And the following week is gonna be against Atlanta, but that game's a gimme. It's regardless if we win or lose, they've already been knocked out of the playoffs, so it doesn't have huge implications for us after the Carolina game. So we'll leave it at that. Jags. It's again, there's not going to be much to tack on for each team, right? Because again, we're coming towards the end, and the Jags very well may make the playoffs. They're in a similar boat. Their game is just a week further ahead, right? So they have two more games. Both of them are division games, but it's the Texans first, who are 2-12, by far the worst team in the league at the moment, and they don't. That again is a gimme game. They win that game and then they beat the Titans. They win the division. It's very simple, right? Now losing to the Texans is a bit of a monkey wrench, but they still just need to beat the Titans, essentially. That's what it comes down to. If they beat the Titans, I don't know if it'll matter what has happened against the Texans because of the Texans record. So, take that in consideration. As far as that game is going to be concerned, this is the final game for the Titans as well. So, it'll be a classic situation where, hey, whoever wins this game wins the division. So that's what's happening there for the Jags. I'm still personally proud of what the Jags have been able to accomplish this year, even though they started very slowly. They were able to find an identity behind their quarterback and their running back, ATM, and Lawrence, which obviously I've mentioned before, which is the duo that did it big in Clemson before in college. So they're just translating what they did in college to the pros in their own way and fashion, which is something that I'm a huge fan of, especially when it comes down to players having specific talents. Also, much like what Joe Burrow did with the Cincinnati Bengals. So with those things out of the way, let's look into the future, right? Like I wholeheartedly believe that the Jags can beat the Titans, that they most likely will beat the Titans and go ahead and claim that crown, which they haven't done in a few years now. The last time they did it, I think Leonard Fournette, they did it on his back, man. They drafted him. It was like the fourth year of his career there. And after that, I think that's when he got out and came to Tampa. So that's going to be a very interesting picture for the Jags, especially, with the way that the playoffs are forming right now. They are going to be what you might call the oddball out, with all these powerhouse, Buffalo and Kansas City. But I look at that Kansas City game. They pushed Kansas City to the limit. Buffalo, it won't be a walk in the park for them a second go around. So, there's just things like that you look at and you say, okay, yeah, there are blemishes on the record, but that's okay because they're a much more developed team. They're a much more mature team now, which you can take advantage of a less mature team, right? Especially for, somebody like ETN, somebody like Trevor Lawrence, who, they're terrific players, yes, but they may take a second to get going, right? They're very analytical in their approach towards the game. So when you have players that are like that, they don't always just come out swinging, right? So that's just something to take into consideration for those teams. Of course, Miami's going to be covered on a new show, but of course, then they're still very well make the playoffs, and that would put all four or all three teams in the NFL making the playoffs, so that would be huge. It is a great time to be a fan of what any Florida team right now, with the way that they're all performing, whether it be, in other sports like, hockey with the Bolts. If you like the Rays, of course, then the Rays are in the off season, but when spring baseball comes back around and spring training, all that kicks in, we'll have a lot more to talk about then. But it'll still be an exciting time, which is all, brought to you by the new year, of course. So, a bunch of things to look forward to, especially for all those fans here in Florida. We're going to go ahead and mosey on into college football because that's what's next up on the docket. And, with college, again, there's not going to be much to talk about. For the Gators, it's more about the recruitment process, right? Right now, Billy Napier is flexing a little bit. He's showing us what you can do when you target the right people at the right time. He's working in the transfer portal. Already got a DL over from, I can't remember the college. Memphis, was it? I think it was Memphis. So, that was one of the first strikes with him in the offseason, and that's going to be, a good look, especially after being able to recruit so well that we did. Again, we got a bunch of 4 and 5 stars, which is something that we haven't done very well traditionally in the last few years, right? Now, you go back, a decade or so, and yeah, sure, we were doing that pretty well, but this isn't that time. This is a completely different time, and it's showing. So, good job, Billy. And Billy, we trust. Billy Napier, we trust. As they have been saying over there earlier in the season down here in Tampa, as far as Florida is concerned. And also, the portal is going to be ever-changing, evolving, so we'll wait to see what happens come the end of that, the portal transfer time frame is concerned, and we'll be able to have a better look at the team also come springtime. So it's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot thrown at us early in spring, okay, guys? So you have to stay tuned for that. With FSU, they're in a completely different ballpark, right? So they wrapped up their season again, 9-3, second place in the ACC Atlantic Conference, right behind Clemson. Same thing I mentioned last week. But this week, we have new news. Obviously, for those who didn't watch the game, they beat Oklahoma. Now, obviously, I predicted that too. But a lot of people would have predicted that. Though FSU is playing really good football right now. Oklahoma, though the name may be a powerhouse, they're just not on that level yet right now. Not quite. I mean, yeah, they hung around, and that's something that you expect, especially from that ball club. You know, a terrific history of college football in that name, Oklahoma, okay? The Sooners. But FSU is the better team. 35-32 is the final. Good game. Congratulations, of course, to FSU finishing 10-3 on the season after the ball win. 10-win seasons, that's a hallmark in college football. And so good job, guys. Obviously, we hope that, Gator's, going to kick y'all's behinds next year, and we'll get into that when we get into that. But for this year, this one was for y'all. So good job, FSU. Congratulations. Let's go ahead and take our first break. When we get back, we'll go ahead and get into some hockey and into the basketball team, of course, which obviously will be the Orlando Magic. And we're not going to be talking to Miami because they're going to be on a new show. So you guys get ready for that when I get back. Again, this is Palm Tree Sports. It's brought to you by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And guys, we'll be right back in a second, okay?
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' to NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered on college ball from the Cal Bears to the Stanford Cardinal, so that no matter what, reppin' in NorCal Sports is always reppin' the Bay. So if you bleed red and gold, or you're looking to keep an eye out west in them thar hills, don't miss me, Gina G, on reppin' in NorCal Sports. Catch me every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have your fandom repped harder than a trio of defenders guarding Stephen Curry before his buzzer beater is Gucci.
Alrighty, you guys, welcome back to Palm Tree Sports. Again, I'm your host, Corey Pujols, and of course, it is brought to you by Sports Radio, your direct feed for all their sports. And guys, so the last time I checked the score before I got on here and started the show, okay, the Bolts and the Coyotes were playing. Coyotes were winning 2-1. That was at the end of the first period, okay, guys. So I don't know what's going on since. Perhaps the Lightning are doing what they do and bouncing back and, playing good defense and scoring on power plays, that kind of thing. Now, something that I'm extremely proud about for the Bolts are 22-11-1. Third place in the East. Something to be very proud of. That's what I'm trying to say. I gotta say, it is very much so important for them to win as much as possible, right? Because the Bruins right now, they're not letting up. They're playing terrific hockey. I can't explain it. Those guys are going nuts, but every so many years they do that. They just go on a run where they're just absolutely unstoppable, right onto a Stanley Cup. It could be one of those years for them. The Lightning may have something else to say about that. We'll see what happens towards the end of it. But right now, that's where things are standing. The Coyotes aren't the best team right now in hockey. They're standing at 13, 16, and 5. So a bunch of ties right there. They could have gone either way for those teams. So, that's a big thing for them, especially being up right now 2-1 on the Bolts. So let's get together, Bolts, play some defense, score on power plays, yada, yada. The arithmetic of it all. And let's do what we got to do. The 2-game win streak right now can easily be turned into 3, and that's what we're hoping for right now. And just got to keep hanging in there. The Maple Leafs are in second place right now with a similar record, but with a few less losses, I should say. Their record is 22-8, I believe it is. So you take that into consideration, about a 3-game difference, 2.5-game difference here if you count the tie. So the following game is going to be against the Blackhawks on Tuesday. That's an 8:30 game. All right, so nighttime, prime time. You guys get the idea. Hopefully we can go ahead and get that dub regardless of what happens here. The East right now is the super competitive side. Out there West, I think everybody is matching records of 22 and change for their records versus the Bruins, who are just tearing it up right now. I think they're 28-4. I think is their record. So you just look at it like that right now. It's early, but still shaping. Look to be like the East is going to be the powerhouse of the two conferences, and it's clear that there's a class, if you would, the class of the East, and I would say that's the Bruins right now with the way they're playing hockey. So, good job, Bolts, though. For the most part, again, 2-game win streak, something to be proud of right there and something to build on. There was a 2-game losing streak before that, but, we're not going to pay attention to the past. We're only going to, worry about what we can change, which is the future. So with that being said, good luck tonight. Go get that dub. And again, good luck on this next game against the Blackhawks, because obviously we want to get back on track regardless of what happens here tonight. Now that's it for the Bolts. Next up, we're going to talk about the Magic. The Magic aren't doing too hot. A few days ago, they had to play the Lakers. They lost. That wasn't a good look. LeBron went off. I watched a little bit of that game, but obviously I was kind of watching as a Bron fan more than anything. So, hey, it is what it is. But unfortunately, it kicked off a 3-game losing streak for the Magic, which is not good. Before that, they were actually rolling. They were playing good basketball, good defense, but there was a suspension due to the altercation at the Detroit game. I don't remember exactly which game it was, but there definitely was a bit of a cheap move that was performed, and that doesn't go over well, especially when you play a game where you guys who get injured all the time, right? Basketball is one of the more physical sports. We've seen a lot of ugly injuries, especially with legs and situations like that. So, the last thing a big man wants to do is be off balance or in the air, all right? Don't make it easier on them, and that's kind of what happened in that situation with the altercation took place. Of course, I don't think that an eye for eye, I don't think that's good. An eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. But at the same time, I think you also have to set boundaries, and sometimes people do things, and I don't know if they're trying to be ugly, but sometimes you have to stand your ground. Now, you have to do it a different way, perhaps, right? That's the key here, is to do it, effectively, not to, upgrade the situation from bad to worse. So, You take those things in consideration. You say, hey, well, what do you do? Well, obviously there were suspensions that were handed out. You take that in consideration with the way the team's been playing, and then you get the 3-game losing streak. Point is that, guys, that they're going to have to bounce back. Right? And unfortunately, again, this record is nothing to be proud of right now. Those guys are sitting at 13 and 24. But they're getting ready to go against a Thunder team who ain't doing too much better than they are. 15 and 20 is their record. So maybe they can find a win there and then build some momentum. Because, again, most sports are always all about momentum, especially in terms of control. Like, you know what I'm saying? Especially, you have hundreds of possessions in basketball per game. Okay, so when you break those numbers down, it's easy for a game to get swept away. And most games are not out of reach until about the end of the third, fourth quarter-ish. Unless it's some of those weird blowouts that we've seen before, like that one time that he blew out Chicago. Sheesh, it was like 50-point differential, and it was like the third quarter, bro. Like, you guys can count it. All right, so, but with that being said, Magic, again, you got to get back to playing good basketball, being aggressive on offense, attacking the basket, being good on the perimeter, making sure that you're hitting high percentage shots, the kind of things that you guys want to do on a regular basis, which you have to implement, especially with this young team. I'm always going to go back to that, because when you have a young team, there's going to be, guidance is key. Right? So the lack of guidance, or perhaps the wrong kind of guidance, can lead players into the wrong direction, and that's what you don't want to do, because then you lose the team. So, Magic, You're young. It'll take time, but you guys can get there. Obviously, you may need some help, but that'll come, in the future as all teams do, through drafting and trading and things like that. But let's get a win at the Thunder, yeah. Oklahoma City, let's get a win there. So that's more or less it for sports, guys, as far as the Florida sports are concerned. Unfortunately, there's no more UFC events for the rest of the year, but again, the rest of the year is just hours, guys. So we're about to start this new year, and with that being said, I do want to talk a little bit about what's coming up in the new year for a lot of different teams here in Florida. One of those things is for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, there are a lot of people who aren't sure about what's going to happen with Tom Brady's future. Right? That's something that's going to be on everybody's mind. I'll be the first one to tell you I'm not very sure. Twitter's in a frenzy about it. ESPN doesn't have much more information than anybody else does, and obviously Tom is a very closely guarded person. He doesn't just let his information slip, and he doesn't share it with many people. He's a very vague person when he's approaching something that's close to his heart. So when you have somebody that's like that, it's best to give him his space and allow him his time. We'll know more probably after this season plays out. I think if we make it to the playoffs and make the playoffs at least a deep kind of run, something like we did last year, I wouldn't be surprised if he says, hey, you know what, let's take a different approach this offseason and change things up a little bit, but let's still get after it the way that he would normally get after it. I don't think he wants to slow down. I think he feels like he can continue to play, and again, the stats would say that he can. You take away the interceptions that's been going on that plagued him over the last 6 games or so, and he's still an acceptable quarterback. I personally love watching him play the game of football. At any given time, he could shrug it off and just turn into a monster. Absolutely turn into Darth Vader, and that's something that you don't get in many athletes. And somebody's leadership like Tom's is something that could also be mistaken for something that's easy to come by when it's not. So that's just one big thing as far as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are concerned. There has been a lot of backlash. I'll go ahead and give my opinion on this part. Byron Leftwich, there's something's wrong with him. And when I say there's something wrong with him, I'm not sure if it's because BA is no longer, the head coach, so he's lost some of his offensive influence where he can normally go to BA and use him for a reference. He can't necessarily do that. I'm not necessarily sure if it's the decisions behind, our head ball coach, Todd Bowles, but I will say this. The offensive play design has looked pretty much whack. I don't know if they just turn it over to Brady and let him do his thing towards the end of the game if they're losing, and that's what happens when Tampa Bay, and he just turns into some sort of model superhero that seems to be able to, swoop in and save Lois Lane at the right time. But if that's indeed what's been happening, then I say just give the offense to Tom. Well, then he'll lose his job. Well, then that's unfortunate, but it's not about him, right? And it's not about me. It's about the guy next to us. It's about, each player next to each player. It's just like in the military, you don't fight for the Army or for the Navy or for the Marine Corps. You fight for the guy next to you. You fight for your brother. So if that's what you do and they're not implementing that, then there seems to be something wrong here, because you could easily look just as much the genius if you just say, hey, Tom, teach me your offense. Yeah, I'm the offensive coordinator, but here's the thing. You're not going to be here forever. I may be here after, and you're going to be in the booth. I'm going to want to be able to teach. I want to be able to know from the GOAT and how the GOAT saw it on the field. I mean, think about that. Who wouldn't want to do that? Who wouldn't want to go directly to, Kobe or Michael or LeBron and be like, hey, you know what? How do you do it? Specifically. And then, and you would be asking different things, right? Like for Jordan, it would be, how is it that you're able to draw up perfect game plans, especially in series where you know that you may go down a game or two and it's going to be a dogfight. You're going to have to rally the troops, right? Especially in clutch time, right? Because, Michael didn't win every single finals cleanly. Like, there were some times where those things went down, and they were out to the wire. You look at LeBron. What does he bring to the table? Well, consistency at all 5 positions. And it's not just consistency, it's age consistency. It's showing stats from him playing 20 years ago till now, and the guy's literally identical. It's absolutely ridiculous, some of the things that he's been able to do. And what he'll tell you is the first you got to do is take care of your body and know your enemy, right? And those are the 2 most important things you can do, because if you can't, if you don't have your body's not taken care of, you can't perform. If you don't know who you're playing against, what kind of plan can you come up with? A bad one? It's not going to work. Kobe, he's going to teach you isolation. He's going to teach you how to be the best player on the court. That Mamba mentality, that regardless of what's going on around me, the walls of Jericho could be falling and I'm still going to be dunking on somebody. That's one thing that Kobe knows, is that he's not going to lose. And that's what he can teach you, is specifically and individually how to rise to the occasion even when other people think that you can't. There's so many different things out there and fundamentals that you can learn. And why wouldn't somebody want to learn all those things from Tom? So I say all those things to basically just say the offense has to change. The defense has been playing amazing, what they've had, but the offense has to change. So that's that. Only notes really that I didn't mention before that I would mention about the Gators. Their recruiting process is going to be very different than it's ever been before. Everything that I was talking about before was kind of just, off the book stuff. Just things that, if you didn't know, well, now you know. But let's talk about a little from a personal standpoint, somebody who's been a Gator fan for over 20 years. Recruiting here at Florida has always been up and down, right? There are some times where we recruit the absolute best prospects, and there's no doubt about it, right? And you look at the 2006, 2008 football teams. Those teams were nuts. They were loaded. Like, when you talk about pure talent, I don't think people understand because they may have watched them just for a game or for, a couple of games, SEC championship, BCS championship was what it's called back then. Maybe that's all the time that they saw from them. But to watch those guys play for about a 5-year span was just some of the absolute best college football I have ever watched. And I mean at all three phases, right? And I mean special teams was nuts. We had Brendan James. This guy set the record, I think, in the SEC for most kickoff returns for touchdowns in a single season. And then the same, obviously, for Florida's record with 5, I think it was in a season. So he was absolutely nuts, just scoring at will whenever he wanted, essentially. He was also a pretty good offensive tool at times. But you didn't need much when you had Tim Tebow at quarter. You don't need much. You just need some guys with a heart just as big as his. So, we want to get back to that. That's the idea. When you look at Florida and you think powerhouse, that's one of the reasons why. Obviously, you think about that team in the 90s led by the old ball coach, Steve Spurrier, who is the greatest coach in Florida's history, of course, what he was able to do with those teams and things that he was able to do, especially in his recruiting process, bringing some of the best talent from all over the state here to play football. And that was a really fun thing to watch. He won a national championship. It was the first national championship in Florida's history. So, that was also a phenomenal thing. And it's something that made us believe that not just that we were a powerhouse, that we would continue to be a powerhouse, and even know that we still are now. Just obviously have hit a bump last year with Dan Mullen, what was going on with his recruiting process. And one of the biggest reasons why he was let go. So I was a huge fan of Dan Mullen, what he was able to do from the offensive standpoint for us, especially because he was the offensive coach during the time we won those 2 national championships. So it's not like he's been dead to us at any point in time, but let's just call, a spade a spade. He was not nearly as dogmatic in the recruiting process, especially towards higher and better recruits as Billy Napier has been in just his first year. And that speaks volumes. You see what I'm saying? That speaks volumes, especially for somebody who's having a second stint here at Florida after being a head coach at Mississippi State, if I'm not mistaken. So, just some of those things to take in consideration, especially from a personal standpoint of being a fan from Florida Gators for a long time. Tennessee looks the part, and that's another thing you also got to take consideration. It's not just that Georgia anymore. This is no longer the SEC of old, where you just walk through Tennessee, you walk through Kentucky, you walk through Vanderbilt, and then, whoever wins between Florida and Georgia determines. No, Kentucky and Tennessee, they're ranked, and they're playing good college football, and they're recruiting well, okay? All those things matter. So, Gators, let's just, and Billy Napier, we trust, as I said before, but it's just, again, from the personal standpoint, this is what we need, and we'll start to see it pay dividends. You see what I'm saying? Because it's sometimes on college football, it's exactly what it looks like on paper. That this guy is the best recruit. And that these are the best recruits. So then when you start targeting them and going after them with your heart and understand that the rest of the game is going to come to them. They're here to play football. Now, what team they represent might be a personal matter. They may have grown up knowing what team they want to play for. They may have not. But guess what? If they haven't, then understand this. They're here to play football. Give them the best opportunity to do that. And that's what Billy, I think, is doing for those boys. So, congratulations, Florida. But we, got to keep it popping. Got to keep it moving, right? And got to build off of this for sure. For sure. Guys, I don't have any other personal, notes. But I will say this, guys. We're headed towards a new year again, as I mentioned before. And it's a time of complete uncertainty. 2023, what's it going to be like? Lord knows the last so many years have been nuts by themselves. I can't begin to tell you. I'm 28 years old, guys, so, I graduated high school in 2012, and, it was also a different time then. It was a much different time. I'll tell you what, for those who don't live in Tampa, it wasn't as populated as it is now. So for those who have never been to Tampa, Florida, understand this. It was a relatively small city at a time. Now it's just absolutely huge. It's being monopolized. Everything's being metroed out. There's a mid-city now. We didn't have that before. It's just, all those things that comes with a city getting bigger and expanding, if you will. So, but again, with this new year, I pray for the best for all of us. Again, and as we step into new things and begin new journeys, also be open-minded, everybody. Just be consistent with yourself. Always talk to yourself. Always ask yourself, hey, how do I feel about this? Don't be afraid to, take the time necessary to analyze a situation before making a decision. And I'm just speaking these things into existence again for all of us. It's all good practice and things like that. But, with that being said, thank you guys for joining us here on IE Sports Radio for a great time, for a phenomenal year for IE Sports Radio. Me specifically, I came here a few months ago, so it's been a great few months for me. I enjoyed doing the show. I enjoy talking to you guys. I always enjoy hearing the feedback. If you guys ever have anything to say, I'm always here to listen and perhaps assess the situation and bounce back, or, just take it and learn from it, whatever it may be. So let me know, guys. Again, I really appreciate you guys for hanging out with me here on Palm Tree Sports. I enjoy doing this show. I love covering teams, our teams more specifically down here in the sunny South. And with that being said, guys, I wish you all the best in 2023. I'll be same place, same time next week. So, I'll still be here, but it'll be a new year. It won't be a 2, it'll be a 3 at the end of that. So, and guys, of course, if you want to hit me up, I'm on Twitter. Talk about everything, all sports, hot takes, whatever the case may be. Hit me up there at Corey Pujols, and enjoy the rest of 2022, guys. Just a few hours left here, just under 6 hours left. So enjoy the rest of 2022. Hug somebody. Enjoy the time. Have a drink. Not too far though, drink responsibly, yada, 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 don't drink and drive, and all those wonderful things. But again, my name is Corey Pujols. I am your host for Palm Tree Sports, brought to you by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and I'll see you guys in 2023. Cheers. Have a wonderful evening, guys.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Locke.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.